we may not be realizing, but we are right now in such a special time between the Parasha of Terumah and Parasha of Tessaveh. We don't realize it because it's very technical. The Torah describes how the Mishkan was built. The Torah describes how the Kohanim were dressed. And it's hard for us to relate because, unfortunately, we don't have the Mishkan, we don't have the Bet HaMikdash. But I think it's very important that we take the time to make a stop and to think about what's really, really happening. But before I get to the big picture, I want to take your time to realize there is something in the details of the Pesukim. There is always something when we dig in the Torah that we find extraordinary. Last week's Parashat Terumah, the famous Pasuk starts, Veyikholi Terumah. Kadosh Baruch Hu asks Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Jewish people they should take for me a Terumah. And yes, we made a big deal of the Veyikholi Terumah. Why not Veyitenuli Terumah? I want you to forget about this for a second. Look in this week's Parashat Tessaveh. The Pasuk says, Ve'ata tetzaveh et bnei Yisrael, ve'yikhu elecha shemen zayit zach. Did you hear that? It's the first Pasuk. We have the same exact verb, ve'yikhu. The Jews should take. I didn't see anyone putting in parallel the ve'yikhu of Parashat Terumah and the ve'yikhu of Parashat Tessaveh. In fact, it's rare to find an answer on the ve'yikhu of Parashat Tessaveh, as if we already covered that last week. But today, I want to take your attention on the word following ve'yikhu. The Pasuk says in Parashat Terumah, ve'yikhu li terumah. The Jews should take for me, God, a terumah, a donation. In Parashat Tessaveh, Hashem says, ve'yikhu elecha. They should take to you, Moshe Rabbeinu. What are we talking about? The olive oil for the lighting of the menorah, of the holy menorah in the Bet HaMikdash. You should wonder, why in Terumah li? Why in Tessaveh elecha? That's an interesting question. And I think it's really worth to listen to the answer for that. You know, the word Tessaveh in Hebrew, Tessaveh and Tzav, is every single time in Rashi brought by the Gemara itself, En Tzav ela lashon ziruz miyad uledorot. Every time you see the word Tzav in the Torah, it is usually referring, ziruz, milashon zerizut, to an action that requires special energy, to be zealous, to be fast, to catch the mitzvah on time, right away, miyad uledorot, for right now, for today, the present, and for the future generations. Tessaveh introduces this idea. It's not tzav, it's Tessaveh, which means eventually we will come to that. And we can answer that probably the reason why there was this accent from Borei Olam is because the olive oil of the menorah had to come from the purest of the purest. The first drop only, katit lamaor, the best for the holiest. But there is something else. I want you to think of the house of God, of the Mishkan, of the Bet HaMikdash, as an element with two dimensions. And last week's parasha covered the first dimension. Terumah is all about what we call the structure of the Mishkan. The structure on the outside, the structure on the inside, the furniture, the kelim, every single item that was in the Mishkan is described, or almost every single one of them, in Parashat Terumah. Parashat Tessaveh talks about the second dimension. A dimension that is not about the structure, but about the energy of the Mishkan. The energy of the Mishkan was symbolized first by the olive oil of the menorah, which brought light. Light and energy are very close. But also by the begadim of the Kohanim. the Kohanim, the priest, the human being inside the Mishkan, part of the structure of the Mishkan for the energy of the Mishkan. The Kohen Gadol, the Kohen Idiot, each one in his own role and job. But that describes the energy inside the Mishkan. And this, Rabotai, is something that really needs our attention. Because we don't have the Mishkan today. We don't have the Bet HaMikdash today. We don't have the structure, and we don't have the Kelim. The menorah is somewhere lost. The Aron, who knows? But we do have something else. We do have the energy of the Mishkan. We do have the Tamid, Leha'alot Ner Tamid of the menorah. Why? Because that light in the menorah is the light of Torah. Is the light that is hidden in our learning. And that is never going to be destroyed. We are in Galut, but the Torah never was. Miyom sheharav Bet HaMikdash, from the day the Bet HaMikdash was destroyed, en lo lehakadosh baruch hu ela arba amot shel halacha. God dwells within the 6 feet, the 4 amot of the halacha. The person that devotes himself to learn Torah, that takes time during his busy day to learn Torah, to open a book, and to connect to Borei Olam, he can feel the positive energy of the Mishkan. And I think that this is why in Parashat Tessaveh, the accent was not on Vayikhu li, lishmi, like in Parashat Terumah, but Vayikhu elecha, because there is a fundamental rule to learn Torah. Probably one of the biggest struggle for someone who just comes to learn Torah for the first time or for his first years, and maybe even longer. It is the fact that who says that it's true? Who said that this opinion and that opinion should be taken seriously? The machlokot in the Gemara, sometimes the midrashim that seem really hard to understand and to connect with, they can shake in us the emunah in the Torah itself and the Hachamim. And this is why Hashem says, Vayikhu elecha. You Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe kibel Torah misinai umesara liHoshua v'Hoshua lizkanim. You need to make sure for this energy to last forever until today in 2021. To bring in the fire in every single Jewish soul of emunat Hachamim. Vayikhu elecha. We need to reinforce within the emunah in our rabbis. As tough as it can be, as tough as the Yetzer Hara is trying to dissuade us, this is eternity. This is tamid, forever. And this requires ve'ata tetzaveh, ziruz miyad uledorot. Terumah was about chesed. Terumah was about donations in general. And chesed, when it's done with the right intention, Leshem Shamayim Lishmi, that's all that matters. But when it comes to Torah, when it comes to have a connection with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, even when we don't have the Bet HaMikdash, that's a different story. And that requires a really, really strong fire of emunah in each and every one of us. Rabotai, today we are Ta'anit Esther, tomorrow is going to be Purim. Just before Shabbat. You know what happened on Purim? The Gemara says, Ki yemu v'kibbelu haYehudim. The Jews renewed the Kabbalah HaTorah. Not just the Torah shebichtav. Hachamim explained that this talks about Torah shebe'al peh. They were doubting in Mordechai. They were doubting in his approach. They were doubting in his reactions. But they realized that without this rabbi, without their leader, there would be nothing. There would be nowhere. Because they gathered, they prayed, they listened, they trusted Mordechai. Then they realized that without the Torah shebe'al peh, without the oral Torah, we are nothing. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu let us reaccept and reaffirm our faith in Him and our Hachamim, and rebuild our Bet HaMikdash b'meira v'yamenu. Amen. Have an amazing Purim and Shabbat Shalom U'Barach.